How's it going, everyone? David from Comic Book Investments. I'm here to talk about one of the most hottest books right now, and that would be Your Turtle Number One. Now, most people probably think like, oh, it's kind of maybe hype, right? You might think, oh, it's just going skyrocketing, right? Like, let's look at some of these numbers for a second. All right, so a 9.4. A 9.4 back in 2016, you could get for anywhere from 6 to 8 grand. Pretty good. 9.4, top grade. 2018, you're looking around 10 grand. Okay, it's gone up there. Even in 2019, you're looking at anywhere from 10 to 13,000, which is pretty good. Most recently, one sold last month in December for $36,000. If you would have bought it just a year prior, you're looking at 3 times your money in a year. Like, what stock really does that? I mean, you got Tesla or something like that, but no one, like, that's just ridiculous. 3 times your money on a comic book. And some people might think like, oh, maybe it's all the hype and it's gonna settle down. I don't think so with Turtles. And here, I think Turtles is one of those books that is just going to continue to climb. Now, it's not going to climb at 3, like, you're not going to buy this book for $36,000 and then you're going to sell it, next year for 3 times that. You're looking at like 100 grand or something like that. No, that's not going to happen. I think what it did is it climbed up and now it's going to be more at a gradual climb. I think there's still room to grow. I think there's going to have some big jumps still. But I think over this next year, it's going to kind of more stabilize. And I think it's going to hold. And the reason why is this. It's emotional connection. Now, people that grew up with the Turtles, like myself, are going to be in their 30s, maybe even some people in their 40s. And at that point, you're established in your life financially, usually. Maybe if you had kids when you were younger, the kids are now grown up, and now you're thinking, I have some extra money. Maybe you moved up in the company you work for, whatever it is. And so what people tend to do, especially men, is they like to relive their childhood. Don't know why, just is what it is. And so now they have extra money, and they're like, well, what am I going to do? I'm going to start buying the things that I once loved, and that's perfect age for Turtles. All right, and that's why they're skyrocketing. Also, you see Pokemon cards skyrocketing because it's, people now that have money now have time to spend it, and that's what they're doing with it. And so yeah, it's an emotional connection, and now you have the financial means to reconnect with whatever it was. Video games are skyrocketing, like Nintendo video games from the 80s, same as like when the Turtles were around. And now there's just a whole bunch of new people with money to spend on it. And so that's why it's skyrocketing right now. And it'll hold because Turtles are like, these printings are super low. They're in the thousands, not tens of thousands, not millions, just in the thousands. And so now people are realizing how rare they are. And a lot of these, think about these are oversized. These aren't the same size as an old comic. They're like a magazine. Like, here's a Turtles. It's a set, another printing. But look at the difference in size, right? These are much bigger. And so what happened then is that people, they didn't take care of them. Because here, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird are just, some people selling them at like local comic shops. I remember my dad telling me, he's like, yeah, I remember that Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird had a booth next to mine at the San Diego Comic-Con, and it just looked like he was just like this new stuff that wasn't valuable. My dad only dealt in the old golden age. And, when I started this business, I had a complete run of Turtles. Complete run of Turtles, complete run of Hulk, except Hulk number 1. And I sold them all to start this business years ago. I wish I still had it now, but I've definitely invested my money wisely, and it's been better in the long run. So, like this one right here, there's different printings as well. This one is the third printing. And the way you can tell is on the inside cover, it'll tell you, it'll say third printing. And then this other one right here is the second printing. Oops. This is the second printing. Just look on the inside cover, that's the easiest way to tell. There's a counterfeit out there, and there's lots of guides to figure out this counterfeit, but I wouldn't worry about it. Like, you can just look up online, and they're kind of pretty easy to spot. But yeah, I have a whole stack right here of just Turtles 1s, 2s, Raphael #1, stuff like that. And I buy these whenever I can. Whenever I can. I have tons. If you go on our website, they fly off the shelf like instantly. As soon as we get them in, they're gone. If you go on our website, we have a ton. These will all be sent out to be graded, of course. And then you can check them out on our website. I'll leave the link below. But anytime you can, if you're investing, my brother, for example, he doesn't do comics, but he has a lot of money, and he's like, well, I'm investing in stocks, I have real estate, what else can I do? And I'm like, you can get comics. And I gave him a list of the best comics to get. This about a year ago. The top of the list was the Turtles 1, Hulk 181, and Giant Size X-Men 1. If you're in that tier, if you have a lot more money, then yeah, you can go into your Fantasy 15s, stuff like that. If you have more money, you can go to Superman 1s, Batman 1s, Detective 27, stuff like that. But in the ballpark that, like, the average person, I feel like, and he didn't pull the trigger on the Turtles 1 because it just went a little too expensive for him. But he did get a couple Giant Size X-Men #1s and a couple Hulk 181s and top grades, and those have been skyrocketing too. Because, people that grew up with that X-Men and stuff like that now have money. Now they're in their 40s, and they have money, and they want it. This is what they want to do. They want to relive those days of them going to the comic book store, buying a Hulk 181, a Turtles #1, and picking it up and reading it. Or like, oh man, that's what I'm doing. Like, I grew up Turtles. Turtles were always like my favorite, and and I have a few Turtles things left that I keep. And that's, and now I have a bunch of these, and obviously now I'm in the business of selling them, so I have to let them go. But there's a few things that I've kept for a long time and won't sell for a while. I'll show you. This right here is technically their first appearance. This is Gobbledygook number 1 and number 2. And if you don't know much about this, basically, they were Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird when they were starting out. They made this little kind of, it's like a little comic they made themselves. They basically Xeroxed the pages. I also have the master printings. So basically, they made a print of it, right? The way comics are done, like, I don't know about now, but like back in the days, they used to make plates of them, and they just stamp the plates over and over. So sometimes you can find on eBay like these metal plates, but they didn't have the money to do that kind of stuff. So they drew them up, then they Xeroxed the pages, then they put all the pages together, and they're called a master print, which I own. Only one. That's the only one that exists. I own for both of them. They took the master print, and then they went to Kinko's or whatever, and they Xeroxed 50 copies. That was it, 50 copies, and then they sold them, gave them away, whatever they did with them, and that's all they made, 50 copies. That right there is Kevin Eastman's personal copies. I didn't buy them directly from him, even though he lives in San Diego like I do, but I bought them from a guy who bought them from him. And I bought that like 2 years ago, and I was like, you know what? I don't think we should sell this right now. And at the time, Gobbledygooks #1 and 2, they had this huge. I remember this guy offered years ago $2,000 for a pair, and I didn't have the money. And I told my dad, I was like, you should buy this. And he's like, oh, I don't deal in that stuff. And then I think they went out on Heritage like 6 months later, and they ended up selling in the thousands, like I think $5,000 or $6,000, something like that. And I was like, see, Dad told you. I've had a couple pairs over the years, and they kind of went up, and then they kind of teetered down, and then they kind of stayed. Once people figured out what they were, they still command a good price. Now they're going for the $15,000, $20,000, and if I would have sold these back then, I probably would have got 10,000 for it for the pair for that right there. Now I could probably get much more. Especially the personal copy. I mean, it's personal copy. They only made 50 of each of those, so technically there's 49. I know a couple other ones that exist. Um, so yeah, I think Turtles is here to stay, and they're only going to get more and more popular, especially with like more and more movies coming out, and they have a. I think they have a new cartoon out. I don't know if it's still on, but yeah. So like I said, Turtles #1, great investment. Doesn't matter if I have first printing, second printing, third printing, fourth printing, fifth printing. I mean, they even have sixth and I think seventh printing and all this kind of stuff. It keeps going up. I have them all. Um, I buy when I can, um, and even if you buy, I bought one top of the market, a 9/8 Turtles 1 third printing, and this was about a year ago, and I was like, it was $2,000, and it was at the top of the market, and because I knew, and then now they sell for $5,000 to $6,000 for a 9/8. We currently have one up for I think it's at like 6,500, and when we put it up, like it only like the top one at the time sold for like I think $4,000 or something like that, and this guy offered us. He's like, I'll give you 3,800, and I was like, no, the most recent one sold for $4,000. He's like, fine, I'll give you 4,200, and he's like, it's above what the top one sold, and I was like, yeah, but I know it's worth more than that. And then, sure enough, 2 weeks later, one sells, and it sells for like 4,500. And then he's like, okay, I'll give you 4,500 now for it. And then I was like, no. I was like, we had it up for like 6,500. And I was like, oh, we want six. And he's like, okay, I'll go 47. And then I was like, no. And he's like, dude, that's more than paid. And then one sells for 5. And then it's just like every other week, a new one sells, and just a little bit more. And we've had it up for a month or two. And, at the time it was ridiculous, but soon it's just going to catch up. And honestly, I talked to my brother when we put it up, and I was like, I don't even want to sell it. Like, there's no benefit in us getting rid of it, because, like, in a couple months, maybe $6,000 is a lot, but in a couple months, $6,000 is kind of little now. And especially since there's not that many of them, especially in a top grade like that. So buy those if you can get your hands on them. Keep them, put them away. They're a safe investment. They're not going to go anywhere. They're not going to all of a sudden buy, one for, whatever, the $20,000 or something like that, and then all of a sudden it's like 2 years down the road it's 10. It's not going to happen. Will there be a leveling out? Yes, but in the long run, it will always go up. So if I had to pick, in this price range for this age group, so like, 1980s, I would say this is the #1 book to buy. So buy it if you can. Doesn't matter the printing. If you can afford a first printing, get that. I remember this right before it started booming. This guy offered us 1 through 4 all 9/8s. And except the #1. The #1 was a 9.0 or a 9.2. I can't remember. He wanted 21,000 for all of them, and we're like, and we were like working back and forth. We couldn't make a deal. Someone else ended up buying them, but now it's like, if I would have had that 9.2 just like 6 months later, it would have, way higher. So buy it. Yeah, keep investing.